You're all familiar with the acronym, I guess you call it TMI, which means too much information. What I have today is TMT, which is too much time. 3 months ago, Pastor Mark asked if I would like to help with the service today. And I said, I'll be glad to preach that day. I'm kind of tired of Christmas carols. He said, well, that'll be fine. I won't be there anyway. So here we are, end of the year, close to the start of another one. Surely I thought I can come up with something about that. Maybe it's all about time. So let's start with a poem. Like a thief in the night, it has sneaked in once again, the end of yet another year. And as usual, we're still trying to recover and regroup from all that Christmas cheer. It can be fun to look back, see where we've traveled, or what we've experienced here at home. But let me reflect upon some things I remember as I attempt to put them together in a poem. At my gym, I was asked, would you like to use the mirror? No, I said, the mirror is not my friend. It simply reflects the man I now am and not the man I once might have been. Well, the Trojans achieved national prominence on the gridiron during these past few months. For my team in their blue and gold, it was not enough touchdowns and too many punts. But our baseball team had an outstanding year. Almost everyone joined the Dodger clan. I say almost everyone because Pastor Mark, to his dying day, remains an optimistic Padres fan. As for basketball, what can you say? Our professional teams are not going very far. And what about those 3 promising college players who are caught with their hand in the Chinese cookie jar? But life, so to say, is more than sports, though it does make for good conversation. So there are still bills to pay and pills to take before the train even leaves the station. So we come to church, trying to catch our breath and hoping to make sense of it all, to be energized by like-minded people of faith who are guided and renewed by a heavenly call. Elaborate plans were made to celebrate our 60th anniversary here on Avenue Peck. Someone suggested we invite John Calhoun back to preach. Someone else said, oh, what the heck. The senior choir cranked it up full bore, put on a Renaissance feast. Many people were still eating and drinking and laughing long after the music had ceased. Our pastor preached right through the summer, but I didn't always comprehend what he was saying. And he did continue to invite us into that circle of prayer, people for whom he was praying. Well, it's inevitable that over the course of time we lose some good friends and others we hardly knew. We're reminded how important it is to reach out, express your love to those who are closest to you. So off to the future, to 2018, to who knows what lies ahead. There are bound to be some moments of laughter. There are also bound to be some tears to shed. But as the spiritual states, we've come this far by faith, trusting in the Lord. May we then move ahead to his people upon whom God's richest blessings have been poured. But like they say, all good things must come to an end, including this beautiful poem. So I guess I better get started on a sermon before you all get up and go home. So there was this couple I met while camping one summer up at Lake Tahoe, parking side by side there. They invited me to visit them if I ever got up to the Bay Area where they lived. So sometime later, I did stop in for a visit. Now, Cal, the husband, is a nuclear physicist. And we were joined that day by one of his colleagues from the Livermore Radiation Lab. Somewhere in the course of our casual conversation, Cal asked what I knew about time. I answered, and I thought with a very profound way. Time has to do with hours and days and years, doing the rotation of the earth and the orbit around the sun. And Cal and his physicist friend just kind of rolled their eyes and moved on to something else. So I thought, I must be missing something here. So I went out and bought Stephen Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time. Any of you buy that book? Any of you read that book? I got about 25 pages in there, and I thought, what in the world is he talking about? So like most people, I turned to Wikipedia. Maybe there's something helpful there. Wikipedia said, time is the indefinite, continual progress of existence and events that occur in apparently irreversible succession from the past through the present to the future. Well, I thought, that's great, I can live with that. But if you want a more philosophical or sophisticated approach concerning time, then you talk with Rick Hefner or Ray Russell or one of these other PhDs, and they'll explain to you what time is. Like the country singer says, me, I'm just a simple man. So when I think of time, it's more like, whoa, slow it down. The train may be bound for glory, but it's moving way too fast. There are more things to do. There are more people to love. There are more books to read. There are more poems to write before we hit the end of the line. You know, when I was raised, they said, time marches on. But it's not marching, it's sprinting full out. So let's keep it simple this morning and just think of time, as Wikipedia mentioned, as past and present and future. Look first at the past. You know, as you get older, you become aware of diminished abilities and slower reflexes and less vitality and enthusiasm. But one thing that increases and grows and lengthens is your past. The longer you live, the more past you have. And the first thing you realize, which is not always easy to do, is that you can't change it. If you're like me at all, and I suspect that you are, you look back and see that you've really done some stupid things in your life. And then, this is harder to do, you might be able to identify something brilliant here or there. But you can't go back and change anything. We can learn from the past. We can celebrate the past. We can talk about the past, which we probably do too much of. But again, we can't change. We have to be selective then in what we choose to remember. You can really get hung up on all the errors and mistakes that you've made. You can beat yourself up. If only I had done this, or if only I hadn't done that. You can spend long hours with a Freudian psychologist and figure out what went wrong. Or, this is the big or, you can accentuate the positive and focus on what you have done that had positive consequences. You can look at the influence your life has had upon some other person. You can use the wisdom you've gained to inform the decisions you make today. You can look back and see that the wake of your boat has drifted off course here and there, but you were able to correct it and get it back on course. You've made it this far. Be thankful and acknowledge the grace of God in getting you here. But here's the thing regarding the past. Don't live there. I mean, it's fun to sit around and talk about the good old days and so forth, but don't make it a way of life. If you get stuck in the past, then you don't have what you need to deal with the future. The future, okay, another component of time. Easier to consider the past because, as I say, it keeps getting longer, and the future keeps getting shorter. And that's just the way it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. The past is something we all know. We have our own personal stories. The future is something none of us know. It's hard to talk about what you don't know, though I do that a lot. The future is the great unknown. It has yet to happen. I grew up, as did many of you, with advice from the past to inform me about the future. I was told, and TV ads continue to remind us, we should save up for a rainy day. Now, being raised in Portland, that meant learning to live in poverty. Down here, you folks are so wealthy because you save up for a day that never comes. And you don't want to spend everything you have today to the neglect of the future. Many people, I'm amazed, have tremendous credit card debt, which is so foreign to my upbringing. My father, he would say, if you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it. Never had a credit card. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I became comfortable using a credit card myself. I've had home loans, as you have, and auto loans, but I've never paid any credit card interest. I mean, when the bill comes, I know how much I've spent, so I'm able to pay the bill. I'm sure most of you do the same thing. I'm also sure you didn't come here for financial advice. And certainly not from me. So back to the future. Seems to me the big problem when thinking about the future is anxiety. We don't know what's going to happen, and that uncertainty can foster fear within us. What's that famous line from The Tale of Two Cities? It was the best of times, the worst of times. Well, we figure it's going to be the worst. How much better and how much healthier to imagine it's going to be the best. I love those two radio commentators years ago. I think their names were Bob and Ray, who coined the term Egbach, meaning everything's going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, but okay. And that's what Jesus himself said, as Frank read for us earlier. Don't worry about it. God's in charge. God's already out there in the future. God has brought you this far. He'll certainly take you farther along the way. Just look at the birds and look at the lilies. God takes care of them. Why won't he take care of you? Egbach. Everything's going to be okay. So if you don't want to live in the past, and you don't want to be stuck with anxiety over the future, then where does that leave us? Of course, with the present. Rabbi Kahane would so lovingly speak of the present as a present, a gift from God. The gift we've all been given. We're all here. We have this moment. We have it today. When thinking about the present, I came across a reading from one of Terry's helpful books. It starts with the word wow. It's a word that expresses wonder, excitement, surprise, and humility. This morning when I arose, the sun was shining brightly. The sky was a deep and cloudless blue. The autumn trees radiated gold, bronze, and copper. Without thinking about it, my first reaction was to exclaim, wow. And the writer goes on to point out that none of this was her doing at all. She had no control over the weather. She says, my job was to simply enjoy the morning, be grateful for the experience of beauty. Now I take more notice of the wow moments in my life, acknowledge my feelings, such as the gratitude, joy, and humility that come with appreciating something I didn't affect or create. I don't have to work hard for this day's delights because they are all a gift from my higher power. Well, I've been so blessed with the parents that God gave me. They lived frugal, simple lives in what sociologists would refer to as lower middle class. They were Christians, so I was raised in a family of faith. There's always enough food to eat. There was always enough clothes to wear. There was also shelter from natural elements. Though that may have been a hot water bottle in the bed at night, or what my father liked to do was wrap a hot rock in newspaper, slip that at the foot of the bed. And I think they lived in the moment, day by day. They were grateful for each day that God had given them. They tried to pass that characteristic on to my brothers and I. My mother would say, "Son, yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is but a vision. Every today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day." That wasn't original with her. I think it's originally from the Sanskrit. But it was genuinely practiced. I try to remember these things when I get up and don't say wow, or when I grumble and complain when something isn't going the way I think it should. Today is such a gift. It is filled with beauty and grace and loving people, and I want to just be aware of that, be grateful for that, and be responsible for the way I use it. I think you do too. Amen.